All right. Hello, folks. I'd like to welcome you to our Artist Equities Gallery Talk in reflecting our show called Facing Forward, Portraiture at the Henry Gallery at Penn State, Great Valley in Malvern. And the show will be up until May 31st, 2023. Then it'll come down. So our juror is the youthful painter, Kerry Dunn. And I'm going to turn it over to Kerry, semi-youthful. And Kerry, you'll tell us a little about yourself and just your impression about the show and the pieces that you saw.
Okay, sure. My name's Kerry Dunn. I live here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been in Philly for about 20 years now. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida, and Colorado before that. And I ended up in Philadelphia because I studied with a portrait painter named Nelson Shanks. He was a very famous portrait painter of a lot of famous people. And I teach at his school in Philadelphia, and we study old master methods. And I love portraiture. I've been sort of drawn to portraits since I was in, I think college is when I really kind of realized that. I was like, portraits might be the thing for me. So, you know, I've been an oil painter, and yeah, I love faces. For some reason, I'm drawn to faces, and I'm sure you all could probably relate to that. In fact, as we go through each of these paintings, I certainly am curious to hear also from each of you that got an award. You know, for everybody who got an award, congratulations. I definitely had a different experience with the paintings and the works and the sculptures and mixed media pieces in the gallery when I saw them in real life. It's always a different experience than when you see them, you know, just on your computer screen. And and in reviewing today, I was kind of looking back through all of the submissions that not all of them got into the show, but there's so many cool paintings. And I was even thinking, like, there's one painting that if I were to buy, didn't even get an award. There's one work that I thought was so cool. But so in going to the gallery and sort of spending some time with all of the paintings, they were, I guess my point was that even the ones that did not get into the show, the ones that maybe didn't get an award, we could easily probably talk about each of those pieces, and they would have very interesting conversation about them. So I in choosing the awards for this particular show, certainly is reflective of one person, which that person being myself. I spent probably about an hour and a half at the gallery, just kind of spending time with all the works, kind of just going around and around, taking some notes, seeing what made an impression on me, and then letting that sort of do its work. I was able, I like to have the works, and interact with them without having any text. I'm not really that into reading text beforehand. I almost prefer to not know what the work is about a whole lot, so that you can just have that interaction with the artwork and let the artwork speak to you and do its magic. So that's kind of the process I went through at the gallery. And sort of in that process, you react to something, and then you sort of ask yourself, well, why am I having this reaction? Is it to this work? And is it something to do with the way it was created, the craft? Is there something excellent about the craft that I'm responding to? Is there something unique and different about this piece that is separating it from the rest of the group? that that's doing something for me and I'm responding to in some kind of way? Is it the content? Is it the content that has something unique that it's that is doing something, so it could be a whole bunch of different things. And overall, I guess I thought the show had a wide variety of approaches, materials, and different voices. I mean, they couldn't be more different, really. So that's kind of the show overall, sort of, yeah, kind of going through. But yeah, it was enjoyable. And certainly a lot of these pieces will remain in my thoughts, I think, for a long time, I'm sure.
So, Kerry, I can make you co-host, and
Okay.
okay,
Share my screen.
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Well, how do you want to begin? Do you want to start with the honorable mentions and work your way up, or vice versa?
I think I'd like to work the way up. Yeah, I have the 6 pieces on a file on my computer I can share and just kind of
Great.
we can go through them together. And I'd love to hear from each artist if they're here as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so you're co-host, and
Okay.
you can screen share.
Cool. Screen share. Okay. Share. So, oh, great. Can you guys all see my?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this file right in the middle here. Okay. You guys all see that?
Yes.
Yeah. It's Dustin's piece.
Yes. Alice. Is Alice here?
Yeah, she's traveling.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she alerted me to that.
Okie dokie. So this piece here, and if anybody wants to share their thoughts, I mean, we can have a little bit of a roundtable as well, but I'll kind of start it off, I guess, and then if anybody else has any thoughts, they can, please do share. But this was actually the last piece that kind of just barely squeezed in for me. In fact, there was only supposed to originally be, I think, 2 honorable mentions, but
yeah,
I just kept coming back around to this piece at the end. And I was like, this piece, I just feel deserves a nod. And I think about this work, there was just the composition, all the color, the creativity of the composition feels quite original to me. The artist's ability to have so much going on and yet still have it hold together compositionally without fragmenting out, and sort of becoming too fragmented somehow. I just thought it was a nice design, very playful. I didn't even really notice the larger eyes, I think, I don't think I even really noticed that until today when I was looking at it again. At least I don't remember that part so well. Yeah, just all of these different, faces, all very different. You can kind of get a feeling of all of these people perhaps being in this person's life, in their consciousness, perhaps. And I don't, beyond that, I probably wouldn't really know a whole lot of what this work is about necessarily, but it was an enjoyable piece to stand in front of and just enjoy my eye continually moving around the work with all of the shapes and colors and different faces and expressions, etc. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the piece is called "Who Is Looking?" So, So I'm sure there's more to sort of explore as far as, the title and how that's relating to, is it the viewer looking at all these people, which I'm guessing that's probably what it is, but, what it means beyond that, I'm not quite sure. But I think just the artistic arrangement of the composition, I probably was originally, I think, responding to the most. So that's, for me, that's how this piece kind of like squeezed in at the tail end. But I'd certainly be curious to hear what anybody else might think about this particular work.
Yeah, I had a question and a comment about this piece.
Sure.
Were you at all affected by the title of the show, the theme of the show, when you were looking at the work?
I have to be honest, not really. I knew it was a portrait show, but it's looking forward to our future. So I mean, the title of the it didn't really affect me, I would say, a whole lot. Yeah. I think it plays a role, but it didn't really a whole lot beyond that. Yeah.
Okay. The reason I ask is when I went to the show and looked at all the pieces, I did have the theme of the show in the back of my mind.
Right.
And I think I probably did that looking at all the pieces and including making the decision for what
I'm just trying to get
What's your problem?
I don't have any
Somebody's mic's on.
Join the audio?
Well, I thought it would pop up.
Trying to get on.
Okay, good.
All right. Anyway, so I had it in mind for the pieces that I entered, as well as when I was looking at these pieces. And when I looked at this one, keeping the theme in mind, I thought of the diversity of the world that we live in, and hopefully that we will continue to live in, even though there's a lot of cancel culture going on and hate for anybody that's different. And so I thought this painting celebrated the diversity that surrounds us right now in our country.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, this painting almost looks like a quilt.
Mm-hmm. Or collage.
Yep. Which is like this, this arrangement of all these different elements sort of, working collaboratively. So that's cool. That's really interesting. That's an interesting point. Yeah, I think that's great. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
No.
Sure.
I'm Sharon. This really stuck out to me a lot in the gallery, even when I was dropping my pieces off. I was immediately taken by which viewpoint are we looking at? Are we the person with the eyes where everyone's looking at me, like I'm the person with the eyes, or am I one of those people in that grouping? And it wasn't, at first I looked at the diversity, but then what really struck me was the diversity of reactions on people's faces, and that there's even a cat in there just kind of looking. So some people look shocked, some people look kind of like they're just listening to information coming in. So that's what really, I mean, aside from the colors and the composition, I agree, are really eye-catching, but the individual reactions on people's faces is what really had me think about what are they looking at, and how we all come to observe, even if it's art, we bring our own backgrounds with us, our own education, whether it's formal education or just cultural education, and how that really impacts how we perceive what we're looking at.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah, I mean, I think the key word for me from what both of you said was diversity. I think that's definitely sort of the sort of beautiful thing about this particular work. And I like what you were saying about all the diversity of different reactions from, I mean, I'm not really, whatever may be going on in this person's life. Like you get that little face in the bottom with that really expressive open mouth. And that's interesting. I hadn't really noticed that, the diversity of reactions.
So it reminded me of the screen.
Uh-huh. That particular expression, yes, for sure.
I was struck by how the composition was handled. Well, the lines, the black lines, the triangles, and the triangles mainly, but they say in a painting, a composition, you would want squares, triangles, and circles, and this has them all. I'm not sure I can pick out the squares exactly, but there must be someplace. But I like the way that was handled.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that theory before. Squares, triangles, and circles.
Maybe it was from Cezanne.
Yes. If Alice were here, she would really be pleased with these comments, very much so. All right, we're ready for the next one?
Sure, we can do that. Let's see, so.
Oh, that's me.
Yes, so this one, yeah, Barbara Dimbach.
Dierenbach, yes.
Dierenbach? Oh, Dierenbach, okay.
Dierenbach,
Gotcha.
yes. Does the name sound familiar?
It sure does. It's all, now I just figured it out, so.
And yeah, I mentioned also in general in an email, everything sent to Kerry was sent anonymously, where I cut off the names so that, he could see it fresh.
He didn't want people to think it was collusion or anything.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. Yes. Well, okay. So I just want to say that y'all's comments on that last piece I thought was excellent. I really appreciate everybody's input. I'm the type of artist who I tend to respond to the surface of things and sort of like the visual presentation, and then I contemplate why I'm having a reaction, why I'm having a reaction to that sort of later. So I have my strengths and weaknesses, and so I really appreciate everybody putting in their thoughts also, and just rounding out the thoughts about what these pieces are about. So I appreciate that. This piece here was an honorable mention. It was another work that for me stood out as far as the technical execution of the surface. I thought that it was just a beautiful painting or a beautiful drawing just to look at. And I think for that reason alone was why I was just drawn to it visually. I thought the style was really wonderful and quite, I thought the style was certainly well executed and had a sort of a sense of its own, I don't know, it was sort of a well evolved sort of style with the artist. So it just had like a nice, beautiful sort of sketchiness. The whole thing was kind of sketchy and certainly a nice composition, and the figure being pretty well drawn. I thought, as far as the shapes and the proportions and things, and it's a person sitting on a couch, sort of contemplating, very sort of classic, man think, the thinking man, kind of a motif. As far as like, and so I think that, the style, the beauty of the execution is what really drew me to it. As far as like what it sort of represents or what it sort of means beyond that, I didn't have a whole lot of thoughts as far as that goes. So, I think, for me, it was just sort of the beauty of the surface that I was responding to. But since we have the artist here, we can ask Barbara what she sort of this piece meant to her.
Well, this is very typical of my work. I do incorporate a lot of sketching into my people. I guess I would consider myself a figure painter because my faces are really not very detailed at all. I mean, they're all very vague. It's the way the person is sitting and the colors, and it expresses what the person is feeling. That's what, and I call that a portrait, but maybe some people would not call it a portrait. This actually has more features than some of my other pieces, but it's the overall feeling. And that is a portrait.
Sure, body language.
Body language is a portrait. So that's basically how I approach my figures and my portraits. And
Is this out of your head, or is this a particular person?
No, it was influenced by, do you know the artist, I think it's Jacques Pepin? I'm not sure. I love his work, and it's based on the way he deals with his figures and the feelings that he gets from his figures. So it was definitely influenced by that. And but the sketchiness is something that I incorporate in a lot of my paintings because I love to draw.
Can you say anything about the feeling? You said it has a particular feeling. What's
Yeah,
this?
the feeling, well, of melancholy. I mean, that's what I was going for. The feeling of, I don't want to be too depressed and say depressed, but
Okay.
the way she's kind of schlumped over, she's got some thinking to do. And I tried to convey what the person was thinking, the emotions that she was going through. And most of the pictures are of females that I do. So that's really what I go for, what the person is thinking inside and how do I express that on the outside.
Yeah.
So I don't do a lot of actual features that much because it's the body and the face that's all a portrait for me.
Well, it's beautifully executed. Does anybody else have any thoughts that they'd like to share?
I have a question about the materials. It looks as if you're using charcoal or pencil or drawing materials in addition to the acrylics.
It's acrylic.
It's 100% acrylics.
And ink. And I started out with charcoal, and then I darkened the charcoal with ink because that was this way.
So it's mixed media. It's ink,
Yeah.
charcoal.
Yeah, it's mixed media.
Really nice. Beautiful color work too.
And I tried to make the colors reflect what she was thinking.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, it's cool. Like, I mean, now that I'm looking at it a little bit longer, I mean, everything's kind of yellow except for her legs are blue. So that's
I love the spontaneity of the piece. It looks to me like it's something that, did you do it from life?
No.
It's out of your head?
There's also some pencil work in there too that I left into the painting. So I sketched it on canvas very fast. And then I went into it, and I was trying not to lose that spontaneity with the pencil and the charcoal.
Yeah, I think that spontaneity it comes through very, very well in real life.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I wanted to remark, when I saw this in the gallery, I took a friend of mine with me, and she just went crazy for this. And she's a person who normally just likes paintings of flowers. So we got in a conversation about it. But one of the things that really draws my eye every time I look at it is the hand that comes down and goes over her legs. I just love that. And then how that energy goes into that leg. And I always love how you do the loose sketching, the feel of that. And I also really like that you don't spend a lot of time finessing the features. I like that the features are suggested. So not only are they suggested for what does that person look like, but what do we think that person is also thinking?
Right.
No, or was that somebody, this is the thing that I kept thinking of. Is this somebody who is sitting here thinking like for hours about something, or are we just catching her in a snapshot of her just saying like, one more load of laundry, or,
Well,
you know, something like that.
It's kind of like that. That's that, you know, when you, what is that expression? When you're walking down the street, you've got your face, your blank face on.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. She's just there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can interpret whatever she's thinking. But this is her down face, I guess.
Mm.
There's a term for that.
Mm-hmm.
Resting face.
I didn't want to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Her whole body just speaks so much of what she is thinking. You know,
Well,
there's
thank
so
you.
much there.
I happen to like this painting very much myself.
I do too.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I wanted to say how much I admire any artist's ability to capture a moment in time with such little, I don't want to say little effort, but such little information. When you see my painting, I tend to put in a lot of detail. I was trained as a jeweler, and so I really love all the detail. And sometimes I beat myself up because I want to paint looser and I just can't seem to. And so I admire the fact that you were able to capture the emotion that you wanted to express with such finesse.
Well, thank you. That's something that I do work on.
Brevity.
Not to put everything on the canvas, because I could go on forever and
How do
ever.
you stop yourself?
What?
How do you stop yourself?
Well, that's another question. That's why I take classes, so that somebody could look at it and say, you've done enough.
I want to go in and define that hand.
I know, because it's not well defined, but it's definitely a hand.
I know, that's just my natural tendency.
Yeah, I do need help with my work when I need to stop.
Mm,
And
mm.
I need
Yeah.
somebody to say, that's that you've said enough, and I stop because I could, more is more is more is more.
I have a thought. My own work, I do both alla prima quick stuff as well as long paintings that take weeks or even months sometimes. But the fast, sketchy stuff could be anywhere from an hour to a day. And that's a very different feeling than the stuff I spend,
Right.
multiple layers on, and they reinforce each other. The quick stuff makes me a better long pose painter, and the long stuff makes me a more thoughtful quick painter, I think. And so I always, I'm a teacher, so I always, my opinion is that they reinforce each other and make the other one better. But for me, it's a timing thing, so if I'm actually going to do a fast painting tomorrow, and the longest I could spend on it is a day. So once I put my brush down to go make dinner, like that's it, or I might even finish, shortly after lunch, I don't know, but it's definitely a timing thing, helps me anyways, how much time I have.
I had for years, I participated in a workshop that met once a week. And we had always had a model. And it was a 3 or 4 hour workshop. And the canvases I brought, I worked in acrylic because the people that I was painting with complained about my oils, the smells. So I worked on acrylic, which completely changed my style.
Oh, interesting.
And I had a number of canvases, some of which I've still got sitting in my attic of that I had done in that workshop and put away because I thought they weren't finished. And I thought, well, I'll put them away and finish them sometime. And now that I'm not, I have to work at home, I've got out a lot of those things and looked at them. And some of them I've said, you know what, this is finished. I'm just going to sign it. It's done.
Good, good. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's finished when you sign it, right? Or something's got to call it done at some point. So
Exactly.
Well, I would look at it, stare at it, have it propped up in my studio, look at it for days or weeks, and trying to figure out how I would finish this painting. And when I couldn't figure out what to do to it, I just decided it's done.
Right, that's a good way to do it. Okay, all right, the next one.
yes, we'll do the next one. Cool. So yes. Excellent. So is this artist here? This would be Barbara Wallace.
Yes, I am here.
Hi, Barbara. Cool. Well, congratulations on honorable mention.
Thank you.
So this was the only sculpture that made it into the awards. And this for me, I mean, certainly the subject matter here is compelling and telling. It's basically a memorial portrait. 3 portraits: George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin, and we're all familiar with their stories and their deaths here in America and in our culture that we're struggling with. So the story of this memorial portraits are, compel us. In addition, I think that I find this work very enjoyable to look at. It's got a certain style to it. It's definitely stylized, I would say. And it's got an emotive quality that as well that, I think sort of, kind of pulls you in. Certainly the George Floyd one, I'm definitely feeling that one. So I think the combination of, it's like we know these folks at this point almost, we know their stories, and we almost you almost feel like you know them almost. And so there's a familiarity, and I think, I don't know if I enjoy that sense of being around familiar people that I feel that I kind of know in a way. I hadn't even had that thought until just now. So yeah, I think the subject matter, being a memorial portrait, the style, the sort of emotive qualities, etc., I think are why this piece sort of felt like it had a presence and it's also approachable. I feel like this work is approachable, which I also appreciated. So that's what I'll say about that, and I'll open the floor up. In fact, Barbara, if you wouldn't mind saying a few things.
Well,
What's the other Barbara?
Oh, I'm sorry. Which Barbara? We've got 3 of them.
Barbara Wallace.
I don't mind if you'd like to comment first, Barbara.
No, you speak first.
Okay, so, as a sculptor, it's a whole practical issue in terms of material storage, moving, etc. So it is a faux bronze piece, and it gives you a good idea about what it would actually look like if it was bronze. But there's a sort of an added sort of twist to this because it's not. It's made out of recycled materials, and it's actually not very heavy, not very valuable in terms of materials. It would cost thousands of dollars to create this in bronze. Anyway, the ability to bring together these three individuals in memoriam and place them in front of the public, it seems like a very important thing to me as a sculptor, as an artist, sort of watching from afar as these occurrences, tragic in our history, continue. What can I do as an artist? And I can create this memorial. I've been in kind of the memorial business for a while. I worked at the on the Vietnam Memorial, the 3 soldiers, when I was a young sculptor, in terms of the mold making and casting process and having it translated into bronze. And I've been doing COVID memorials and so on. So it was something that I could do, and it was meaningful to me. And I find when I do this kind of a memorial portrait, there's a certain mourning process that I have to go through, because I have to look at these people and I have to think about them. And as the portraitist, it's my responsibility to try to get that likeness, which I find very challenging. So it's a big challenge. It's a worthy cause. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to show it at the Henry Street Gallery, and that you chose it to be receiving honorable mention. And I just think it's so important that we say their names and see their faces. And I thank you very much.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Anybody else would like to share?
No, I just wanted to say it's very moving. And when I was there in person, when you're there in person, it's even more moving. Question, I can see how you use the cardboard, paper, paint, but where's the metal?
The armature,
Oh, underneath it.
the internal
Oh, okay.
structure.
I see. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really moving to stand in front of it and look at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to see this work, be somewhere, on a semi-permanent or even permanent basis. I could definitely see that.
I agree. And it's easily translated into bronze. You can make a mold over this and cast it in bronze, no problem. Just have to find the right.
Yeah, I hope you show
venue.
that work again. I would, if I were you, I would show
I
it.
have shown this work many times. In
Oh, is
fact,
that
right
right?
now,
Yeah,
yes.
good.
In fact, right now it's in a digital display at the Newark Museum in New Jersey.
Great.
Perfect.
I
Yes.
have a question. So the recycled paint, so you said you have the armature, which is the metal.
Yes,
And then what is next? The cardboard or the recycled paper?
it's a combination of the cardboard and paper. It's sort of it's a similar process to working with clay modeling,
Okay.
where there's a gradual buildup. It's a fairly time consuming, and it needs a structure beneath to hold the paper, the cardboard, and it's a wet process. So it requires gravity and time, and eventually painted with acrylic.
It's like a paper mache. That's
Yeah.
where the paper comes in.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
but it's sort of a non-traditional use of those materials, because
So
it's not hollow. There's no chicken wire, which I really don't like that material at all. It's more of a solid structure.
Okay. So I have a question for you, because one of the things that struck me, but when I was in my career, I'm a criminologist.
Yes.
So this material, and I was very much interested in looking at the intersection between art and justice issues.
Yes.
So when I saw recycled paper, what hit me is like this story of the 3 of them. It's just another recycled story for that particular community. Again and again and again and again. We keep hearing these things over and over. And I'm wondering if you chose to use recycled paper as opposed to new paper because of that.
No, I choose to use recycled paper because I'm very concerned about the environment.
Okay.
And I try to use recycled materials whenever I can. And I encourage my students to do so also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really very moving.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm in the process of making a new sculpture. Sandra Bland and Tyree Nichols and third victim, whose name at the moment is going out of my mind, but I think this is an important place for me to go as a sculptor who likes to create heads and who likes to do portraiture. And because of the response that I've received, I can see that this is a really needed area. So, you know, not easy for me to do. I think anybody who's done a portrait of a loved one or a friend or someone that's passed, it really is a very, very mournful experience, but I'm trying to rise to the occasion and do the right thing. Even the memorial, the COVID memorials that I've made, there's a certain amount of emotional expenditure that has to take place to really go there, but so important, so worthwhile. So I can imagine, you know, funerary art, etc., really in that kind of a realm. Anyway, thank you so much.
I've got a question about the metal armature. What did you use? Chicken wire or what?
No chicken wire. Recycled, sort of like clothing hangers, that kind of wire.
Yeah,
You get your clothes from the dry cleaner on those hangers. I use those. I use metal, you know, grocery products that are metal, that kind of metal. It's recycled metal.
Oh, recycled metal. Okay.
No chicken wire.
No
Do
chicken.
not like chicken wire.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how this holds together. I could envision, you know, the wadding of paper and then enclosing it in some kind of wire metal of some sort, and to get the basic shape, and then going back in with you know, your wet paper and doing the details. Is that how you did it?
Yes, that's essentially it. Yep.
Okay.
Good. Okay, well, thank you. I think we need to move on.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, so this work here, Laura Fraser, is she here?
Who's that?
Friesel, no, I contacted her. She's not available.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, so this got third place. I think this one got into the finals because it was very. I found the materials and the combination of sort of the stitching or embroidery. I'm not quite sure what exactly you call it, with something that was almost realism, not realism, but definitely representational, to be certainly unique within the show. So I think that combination is something that intrigued me, and it kept bringing me back around to this particular work. So, you know, the design's very nice. And, you know, I think I just enjoy that combination of something unexpected with creating a representational image out of something I hadn't really. I'm sure I've seen this somewhere before, but it seemed rather unique, and I really like the gold of the jewelry. Also, it's such an intricate kind of medium with the sort of detail that you could potentially get. Yeah, so I felt like this particular work, you know, just sort of the combination was unique, and that really kind of sort of separated it a little bit from within the show. So and then I think, you know, at that point, I don't know if I think I'll open it up now and see what anybody else has any thoughts they'd like to share about this particular work, what you think about it, or what you might be getting from it, etc.
I was trying to figure out,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Barbara.
I was trying to figure
Plain
out if
chocolate.
it was done with a sewing machine, which I think it is. I think those stitches are too
Right, I think you're right.
nice, yeah. And imagining her like twisting and turning that thing while she's got it on her sewing machine, not being a sewer myself. So just from a technical standpoint, I think that's pretty challenging. And also, I really enjoyed the way she handled the hair, the flow, she captured the hair without, painting every strand like I want to do.
Uh,
So we had an art crit a while ago, and Laura had a piece on, and she doesn't use a machine. There are pins that go through paper, and she winds by hand the
Ah,
threads, and then ultimately pulls the pins out.
I can see that.
But this is all, and the other piece she had on the art crit, she took her 8 months to do.
Yeah.
It's virtually a lifetime commitment,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Well,
it's done by hand. It's done by hand.
I
Yeah.
think it's considered to be lace making, isn't it?
Yes, and there's a word for that. Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Tatting,
What is
Adding,
it called?
tatting,
padding,
no,
Yeah.
tatting.
padding.
T is in
Tatting.
Thomas, A.
Yeah.
T is in Thomas, ING, tatting, lace
Yeah.
making.
Yeah,
I actually collect
I would want to cheat and use a sewing machine. There's, there's no way. The patience that it took to do that is amazing. Amazing. So,
Can I just say back to my piece that the third person is Ahmad Arbery? I apologize for having that moment when I couldn't think of his name.
Yes.
Thank you.
I wanted to say I also love that it's on a blue background as opposed to like a black background. I think that with the use of the gold and the blue really speaks to each other. But I agree with Barbara also about the energy and the motion in the hair is really incredible. I
Right.
love this piece.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable to just sort of take in the materials and the execution and the unique, using something that you wouldn't normally associate with creating a representational image. I think this method has huge potential. I'd love to see something a little more complex and it's where the content also is a little bit more complex too as well. Of course, I don't know who this person is or the significance of the jewelry. That would be interesting to maybe hear a little bit more about. The piece is titled Fine Chocolate, which I'm not sure what that's about, but
right. That's right. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely really enjoyable to just enjoy the materials for sure. Any final thoughts? Anybody want to share?
Nope.
Okay, so we're going to go to the second place. Cesario, which is by Sharon Ostro. Sorry, is Sharon here?
Yes, she is. Raise your hand.
Okay, great. So Sharon, I'm a fan. I think this is you had another piece in the show as well, right? I think you had two.
Yes, my
was the dog.
one of my dogs, the collie.
Right. I remember that one. Yes, I do remember that one very well. This piece really kind of, caught a piece of my heart, I would say. It's very endearing. It almost starts to remind me of like making puppets or something. It's mixed media, so it's got real buttons on it. The eyebrows are yarn, I think. He's got yarn coming out of his ears.
And his nose. It's called wax thread. That's what it's called.
Okay, I see. And I've seen probably things artworks that are kind of similar to this. I've seen music videos that are stop motion that I feel like are probably maybe similar. Coldplay has an early video they did that I just love. And this kind of reminds me of that a little bit. Of course, this is a portrait, so it's a little different in that way. But I can see that it looks like you have a photograph behind him. Is that clouds? Is that a photo?
The clouds, so the clouds and the stone that's behind him, that was out of a couple different magazines. And I wanted the clouds there, but I took the stone. The stone reminded me of Rome, and that's what I was going for. That in my mind, that's where he is.
Okay. Yeah, he definitely is a character. And you know, seems very friendly. He's got these big eyes, and he kind of reminds me of somebody that I would see around the neighborhood or something to that effect. You know, like you know, one of my great uncles or somebody who grew up in the neighborhood that's been around forever, wearing some kind of wool sweater or something like that. So I don't know if this is a real person or imagined person, but he certainly has personality and character. That's for sure.
He's an imaginary person, but I spent 7 weeks teaching in Rome for Temple University. And so just taking in the different characters of people and how they're somewhat different from Americans. And I was living in an Italian neighborhood and an Italian apartment complex. So it's really interesting to be a complete outsider and just what you take from what you see.
Right. Yeah, you have a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, one of our earliest criminologists is Cesario Pecoria. So that's who he's named for.
Cool.
That's not him, though. He's just, like you said, a character.
Yeah, this is a picture, a portrait that you really need to see in person so that you could see the hairs and the texture, which makes it very funny. Very funny. And the dog one too was also equally as funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really reminds me of like puppetry. You know, I follow a couple puppeteers that on Instagram and different things.
Oh, wow. I have to look that up.
You know, and folks who are doing a lot of stop animation, you know, creators. This kind of, for me, this is what this work really reminds me very much of. And I love puppets and stop animation and that kind of thing. So I just found this piece incredibly endearing and having a lot of character and personality. Anybody else have any thoughts that they'd like to share?
I have a question about the materials. Is the face watercolor or acrylic?
So the face is actually a piece of Asian paper that has little, I think they're pieces of leaves embedded in it.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went in and colored over top. But when I saw that, I thought it looks like our skin as we start to age, where we have like the liver spots or the freckles or whatever. And as soon as I got that paper, I could see that it was somebody's face, like immediately.
Right.
So, and then I went in and I hand colored. I use a lot of different stuff. I use a little bit of pan pastels on my finger. I use, sometimes I use acrylic paint with my fingers, like just go in and work it like you would with makeup, kind of.
And did the title of the show that was brought up at the beginning of this, did that play any kind of role for you in any way in entering the show, or does that take on any meaning?
Well, I don't usually do well, that's not true. I guess I do. I never thought of them as portraits.
Your portraits portraits looking forward to our future.
Yeah. I would love my future to be in Rome another summer. I'm trying, I'm working on it.
Right.
So just, you know, what's in the future for him.
I'm by nature a storyteller, and this man has a story to tell, and I'm wondering what it is. Wondering, you've explained about the rocks referring to Rome, but I'm wondering where he is and what he's thinking. And I almost see him as a character in a picture book. I can see him, walking through the book and either telling his story or experiencing his story. And I look at him, and it is rather illustrative. And so, I want to know more about him, where he's going, what he's doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a couple people say that to me, that it looks like something out of a children's book.
Yeah, it could be titled A Man Called Cesario, and Cesario is going through life in different situations, and each page. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
See how you're creating your own story.
Yeah, yeah. I love doing him. I literally was up here hysterical laughing, putting on those eyebrows and ear hairs. It just cracked me up.
Those are some of the best moments in your studio, when unexpected things happen, and you start laughing, or just you have these reactions to things you weren't expecting. I think that's you're having an adventure creating, which I think is a good sign.
So is your background in criminal justice, or you're just interested in it? It is.
No, my background, I've worked in prisons and jails, and then I actually was a consultant to the mayor and the managing director in Philadelphia many years ago for the Youth Study Center. And then I went back to teach at Temple in the criminal justice department.
So when you were working in the prisons and jails, it was as a criminologist, not as an artist, not teaching art.
Not teaching art, no. But then when I started at Temple, I got very involved with mural arts. So, I used to go up to the prisons and be part of a group that would talk to the men, or when we did bring some kids in from St. Gabriel's at one point.
And
I just love what they do.
Is the Temple School, the Tyler School of Art in Rome? School
So
of Art?
it is, so Temple School in Rome started out, I think, as art and architecture, and now it's a lot of stuff.
But when I was a student at Pratt, my junior year, I spent summer in Rome, and we were at the Tyler School of Art School on Lungo Tavere.
That's what it could have been called then.
Was that the same building?
Yes.
Happy memories.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we all want to go to Rome, maybe I can do some female figures, Italian ladies in Rome.
Yes.
Maybe they won't be so sad looking.
Yeah. No, they'll be happy.
I like sad portraits, I think so.
Yeah, my portraits are always very sad. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you, everybody, for your input.
Thank you. Great artwork.
Who's next?
It's one more piece.
One more piece.
I love this too.
All right, Barbara. You got a lot of explaining to do, girl.
Yeah, so Barbara Handler with the piece is called Back to Basics.
Yeah.
Yes, and you're right. You said that you like to get into the details, and you said that earlier this evening, and I was like, I think that might be your piece here. Congratulations on first place.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I did not know this piece was going to get the award it got. I had no idea. But as I spent time in the gallery, I would go through each room and walk through the room and see what sort of each little room kind of, I would say, well, what are the two pieces or one piece or three pieces that are speaking to me? I actually pulled them down at the wall, put them on the ground, go to the next room, do the same thing, and then sort of process of elimination. And then this work just was doing something to me that I had to sort of think about, like, why is this work having the effect it's having on me? It is a rather, you could say it is a very detail-oriented piece for certain. I think the composition is nice. It's a little bit, the figures are kind of straightforward. It's definitely, reminiscent of the famous painting American Gothic a little bit, right? Don't say that. When
No,
it
you're
came
right.
to work, was that intentional?
It wasn't intentional originally. But as I began to work on the design, I realized it was, and there was no way I was putting a house in the background.
Good for you. I don't think, yeah, I think it's perfect. Actually, I think it's better the way it is, right? There's nothing back there. It's just a field. And it's like, where are these people living? Like, why are they in a field and why are they naked? So, you know, and I think it's two points I'd like to offer up. One, the fact that they are naked and just looking right at the viewer. That definitely is unusual. And so you have to, and it's I wouldn't say it's, you know, jarring or anything like that, but it definitely makes you pause. You know, the fact that they're nude. And it kind of sticks in my mind, like, what's going on here? What's this all about? Why are these folks nude and why are they just looking at me? So I think that definitely is a part of the sort of question mark that sort of stayed in my brain even after I left this walked away from this painting. And then also, you know, these are definitely particular people. Like, their likenesses are very particular. So I feel like these are real people for sure. Of course, the title, Back to Basics, and you did have a little bit of an explanation about the painting, but it just leaves a lot of unanswered questions, I feel. And I think that the little bit of awkwardness of them being in this what would seem otherwise very normal portrait, you know, situation, but the fact that they're nude kind of makes everything a little just a little maybe a little uncomfortable, maybe a little awkward. But I certainly mean that in the best way, and I think that's why it's sort of that's that sort of little bit of awkwardness or uncomfortableness, I think, makes the piece have a certain power to it. So I will relinquish the floor.
Thank you. Well, there's a little backstory behind this painting. Back in the 60s, I grew up in the South in a very traditional white Christian family. And when I went to college, when I went to college, it was the first time I ever spoke to a Black person. Never had the opportunity to have a conversation. So when I went to college, my whole world experience expanded in a way that I never expected. I met people from different parts of the country, from different parts of the world. And also at that time, there was the hippie movement. And I was seeing a guy who was very interested in communes. And so we went to visit a commune, and I was my only experience with nudity were in my figure drawings in class. And before that, I'd never even seen a naked person. So I grew up very sheltered, and I went to this commune, and everybody was running around naked. They were farming in the fields with no clothes on, and they were playing with their children with no clothes on. And here I am, this little naive girl from the South, with this group of people. And I thought to myself how liberating it was to see them so unconcerned about their nakedness, and how at peace they were in the world they were living in. And back in those days, people joined communes because they wanted to live in a different world. And it's the same today. We live in a world that's so uncomfortable for so many people. And wouldn't we love to escape to a place where we could be truly ourselves and feel free and safe and happy? And so I did take the theme of the show to heart. This painting, I'll make my admission now, this painting was originally called Dick and Jane. And it was not, so for the, I changed the title to fit more into the theme.
Yeah.
But one of the things I loved about my figure drawing classes was I discovered I had no interest in drawing perfect people. In fact, my favorite model in figure drawing was this really overweight woman with enormous breasts and mounds of flesh. And it was like drawing a landscape. All of the hills and the valleys were so much more interesting to me than a perfect body. And so I took a photograph of these two people and I asked them to pose together. And I just love the fact that he looks like Jack Sprat and she looks kind of like his counterpart. And so like the other artist said, it tickled me to death to paint this painting, but I've only shown it twice. I exhibited it at the Wayne Art Center. They had a show about nudes and this piece was in that show. And I even called Boris and I said, do you think it'd be okay for me to enter a show with two nudes in it? And he goes, oh yeah, it's a college setting and it's up on the second floor.
He said that? He said that?
Yeah.
Without checking? Okay.
He gave me permission.
Because some centers will not have nudes, so that
I
was.
know. There are a lot of shows that I enter and they will not accept frontal nudity. So I was quite thrilled to be able to exhibit this painting.
Are they religious schools or just
Well,
galleries?
um,
I think that's weird.
the
Sorry.
Wallingford Center didn't want nudes because they have children walking through.
Exactly.
Well,
From classes.
some
school
classes, and of course, the
I
Jewish Center wouldn't have nudes.
I taught at Abington Friends School for a long time, and I was in charge of exhibitions. And I would love to have been able to show nudes. Couldn't show full frontal nudity for the same reason, because the younger kids went through the theater lobby, which is where the gallery was, on their
Right.
way to the gym. And it just wasn't going to fly.
It's a
Now,
good-
Barbara, when did you paint this?
I actually painted this some years ago, a couple years ago.
So you said you had them posed together? There was two people posed together?
The two people in the painting, yes, I asked them to pose together.
And they posed together nude, side by side?
Yes, because they were part of the commune. They were all naked.
Oh, it was a
And
commune.
you took a photo?
Okay.
Did you photograph them?
Yes, I did photograph them because
How
we
did
were
you
only
get-
there
how did
for a
you get
short.
that developed and printed?
What?
Who developed and printed this picture?
Privately.
Do you have more
This was
photographs?
back in the days of film and cameras.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So a friend of mine developed them for me in black and white. So I had to, and they weren't it wasn't a very good photograph. I had to make up half of it.
Wow.
Carrie, what did you just say? You asked a question?
I was just curious if you have more photographs of nudes from your days at the commune that you could use for more references.
I don't. I found this by accident in a book of old photographs.
Huh.
And I have no idea where the others went. This was it.
Huh.
Sadly.
I'd just like to say, I also have experienced censorship when it comes to trying to display nude sculptures. And to me, it's tragic that we live in a society that's so willing to show violence
Yeah.
Right, right.
and sponsor things of violence, but yet when it comes to the human body, beautiful, handsome, God-given creation, there's censorship. And I also would like to say that the painting is even more beautiful in person than it is in this photograph. And I want to commend you, Barbara, for such a great painting. Is it watercolor?
It's all watercolor.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, and it's even more beautiful in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not a watercolorist, so I really appreciate what it takes to, do watercolor. It's not forgiving.
Yeah.
It is.
But all those details, the details in the grass and the color changes, and even in their skin too. It was really, seeing it was really unbelievable.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's great that you found it after all that time.
I know, it was like scratched and practically folded in half.
Oh, really?
But I loved it so much, and it reminded me of that time, that visit. And it also seemed relevant to today.
Yes, the figurative work is really wonderful, but also the abstraction and the shadows and the
Mhm.
texture in the field and the clouds and everything. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Could you say a little bit, Barbara, about how you said it's relevant to today? I'd be curious your thoughts on that.
I think that a lot of us are so uncomfortable in today's society and everything that's going on, that we would love to be able to go to a place where we could leave those troubles behind,
Mhm.
where we could look toward a future where people love each other again. That's what that whole hippie movement was about. Remember,
Mhm.
love and loving your neighbor. And somewhere along the way, we lost that.
Mhm.
And I love the innocence of these two people.
I do
That's
too.
another thing that attracted me to them personally. But it was also what I wanted to say in the painting.
Hmm.
Plus, I thought they were a couple, that you didn't stage it. It never occurred to me that you would have staged this photo. It seems like they were together.
Well, they actually were a couple.
They were a couple. They
Yeah.
seemed like a
But for
couple.
the for the purposes of the photograph, I grabbed that what is that 3-prong thing called?
Tripod.
Pitchfork.
Or pitchfork, thank you.
Pitchfork.
And I love the fact that it was an old-fashioned pitchfork, an old rusted pitchfork. And I asked him to grab that. And I guess maybe in the back of my mind, I did have that famous painting.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't
American Gothic.
American Gothic. Thank
Grant
you.
Wood.
Thank you. And when I asked them to pose, I had to ask them to get a little closer so her arm overlapped his arm. So there was that connection that I was looking for. But they were so completely at ease with each other and with me.
Hmm.
It's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool that you were comfortable with them.
I really wasn't.
Oh, okay. Because I wouldn't have been. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't have been comfortable looking at them.
I had to pretend I was cool.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. That's pretty
It was a little out of my wheelhouse.
good. Uh,
Good for you for pushing yourself, though.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
Well, I think this is a very compelling piece, and I think it brings up like so many thoughts in so many different directions. You know, talking about American culture, and I thought that the observation about, you know, nudity being so censored in our society, but violence is, you know, is sold everywhere. So, and it's so much more accepted. That's such an interesting, you know, and appropriate, you know, criticism on our culture. You know, even sex, we just sell sex everywhere, but, you know, but just for some reason you look at a nude figure and all of a sudden we're, you know, especially Americans are so, we're so uncomfortable. Yeah, and also just, you know, the ideas about wanting to experience, you know, a different kind of life and something that was more free, you know, during the hippie movement. Like, I would have no idea that this piece was originated during the 60s. You know, so, but certainly I think, you know, somehow inside, sorry, I know my light's fading, somehow inside this work of art, without knowing all of that, I think there's something bubbling up out of the work that sort of hints at everything that's sort of been touched on about this piece. You know, the fact that it seems so natural and casual, these two folks standing next to each other, and I thought they were a couple also, which they are, but that they're nude. You know, it's just that juxtaposition that I think gives the piece its, that little poke that you're just, something is, it's just, you're just like, it sticks in your psyche a bit. And I think that was what ultimately allowed this work to sort of rise to the top, so to speak, at the show, at least for me.
Thank
So
you. I also
yeah.
like the ambiguity. Because like I said, I'm a storyteller, and I've done a number of narrative paintings where I leave the information in the painting ambiguous enough that you ask that question: who are they? Where are they? Why are they here? Why aren't they wearing clothes? What's their story?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's like you don't want to give the answer, right? You don't want to just give the answer to the viewer. You want the viewer to
Right.
be able to breathe and walk around in the environment of peace, and to sort of like, has to be able to, have some room to kind of maneuver. Yeah.
Right. That's why I have trouble with giving them a title.
Yep.
Well, I think that's it.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kerry. This was really, really enjoyable to listen to what you had to say and to what everybody else had to say. So
Yes, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Kerry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
It's great.
absolutely. Thank you. I always find these very enjoyable. It's it's always, I mean, I learn as much from everybody else, and so that part is always, so just, the being able to talk about these things and hear everybody's thoughts is always very educational. So, and it's like, painting people is something, we're telling stories. It's a way for us to connect to each other. I know in the beginning, I kind of asked the question, like, why portraits? Why do we do it? And I think ultimately portraits is a way for us to connect with each other. With each other, with ourselves, and also with each other. It's a way for us to connect as we sort of ponder the folks that we're on this journey with together, and what's their story, what's going on with them emotionally or psychologically, where have they, what kind of, what's it like to sort of walk in their shoes? I mean, so I think I just want to say congratulations to everybody. Really beautiful and compelling work for sure. I'm really glad just to sort of sit in and be a part of this with y'all. So thank you.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you.
thank you
It's
very
great.
much.
Thank you.
And to
so
everybody
much.
else.
Congratulations to everybody.
Yes, congratulations.
All right, folks. All right, and keep in mind, for the few people on, we have our fall show coming up at the
Yes.
Main Arts Center, and there'll be information coming out. All right,
Okay.
Kerry, and thank you for being so generous with your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody.